Welcome to Faith-Filled Investing, the podcast where faith and real estate intersect. Join host Owen Cooper as he interviews real estate investors who are also strong believers in Jesus. Get inspired by their stories and discover how they live out their faith in the workplace. Learn practical tips and strategies for successful real estate investing. Whether you're a seasoned investor or exploring alternative ways to grow your wealth, this podcast will motivate, educate, and connect you with like-minded Christians in the real estate industry. Tune in to Faith-Filled Investing and join the movement of faith-driven real estate investors.
Welcome to Faith-Filled Investing. I'm your host, Owen Cooper. This week we'll be hearing from Alex Campbell to learn about his faith journey, his real estate journey, and how those two have intersected. So, Alex, welcome. So glad you could join us this morning. Thanks for taking the time to be here.
Absolutely. Good morning, and thank you for having me, Owen.
Yeah. So I always like to, it's a world web of connections. So I always like to kind of think about how did we get connected? And usually there's different versions of the story. So I'll let you share your version. How did we know each other? How did we get connected?
Yeah, I would say that's really cool because I know I've heard that said, that power of six, where we're only six people away or removed from being able to know everyone.
Yeah.
And I think we had one of the other owners that you may know, I think his name is Joshua.
Yeah.
He actually was reaching out to our divisional president and inquiring about apartment life. And then from there, just shared that he had a great friend, and then realized that there was this cool connection there with you. And then from there, got to meet you and hear your story, which was just a cool connection.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so Josh Girock was one of the other people I had on this podcast earlier. And in talking with him and then getting together, he told me about this ministry, Apartment Life, that he came across. And we've had a chance to have a few conversations, not only a couple, I think, but I've really enjoyed getting to know you, and you graciously agreed to come in onto the podcast today. So I'm thankful for that.
Oh, absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit about the faith side of your life. What has your journey with Jesus looked like in your life?
Oh, wow. I know anytime I get to share about my journey, it's interesting because I feel like as I grow, just mature as a man of God, I understand just the beautiful nature of needing saving. In my journey, I've always had this just unhealthy dependency on self, and to really absolutely surrender my life over to Christ has been something that I've just highly valued as I grow older. And I remember it just dates back to my time in high school. You know, I was born and raised in St. Louis, and my mother rooted all of my brothers and I deeply in the church. So I had that foundation. But just like I think any other teenager, I could just speak for myself. I ventured away, and as I got in college, I just started making some really unhealthy decisions, and that led me down a dangerous path where literally the Lord saved my life. And my wife now, we were, when I was, I think 19 years old, got into a really sticky situation where my life was on the line. And my mother-in-law, I just call her my mom, she stepped in and was a very avid voice for pointing me back toward the Lord. And in that moment, I actually just threw my hands up and I asked the Lord, if you would save me from this situation, that I would turn my life over to you. And thankfully, that it involved a lot of gang-related activity. And I was no gang banger. I never would say I was that street. I was a survivor. And I got into a sticky situation where the Lord saved my life. And from there, moving forward, I dedicated my walk to Him. And I felt like if I personally could do these things, and I would say in my words, go hard for my own personal flesh and my pride, that I would go 10 times harder for the kingdom of God. And that's where my story begins.
Wow. That's pretty cool. So that happened when you were 19. Is that right? So tell me a little bit about your journey from then till now. What does that look like? Where is the Lord taking you?
Oh, it's been a roller coaster. So at that time, actually, I was living with my now wife, and it was a interesting situation because I chose to, sort of rebel from my parents' teaching and guiding, and I chose to be homeless and live on the
Wow.
streets, and I was in Ferguson, Missouri, when I just realized this was too hard. I made a phone call trying to get some help. And actually, Michelle answered the phone. And it was weird because I was like, wait, Michelle? And she was who I went to high school with. She was one of my best friend's younger sister, and just turns out that her mother allowed me to come stay with them so I wouldn't be on the streets.
Wow.
So long story short, on that, I just really grew towards Michelle, and I really wanted to respect their household. So I told her, like, listen, I think it's time for me to move out because I don't want to be disrespectful. And I really like Michelle now beyond just a friendship. And it was really nice to have the support of not only her mother but her older brother, and we were really close. And he just said, "Hey, I think you'd be great for my sister." And then from
Mm.
there, we got engaged at her senior prom, and we got married the minute she turned 18. And so that was 2007. But I mean, we had a unfortunate turn of events. Her mother passed a year
Mm.
after when
Oh,
we were
wow.
married. And so in college, we had to make a decision. We adopted her younger siblings, who were
Mm.
6, 8, and 12 at the time, 3.
Wow.
And we were trying to figure this out while playing football. She was working full time. I was working full time. I was a pizza delivery driver while playing football at Lincoln University. And now we're fathering 3 children,
Oh, my.
6, 8, and 12. So I had to lean on the Lord in that because there's no way that we could do any of that in our own strength or wisdom.
Wow. That is remarkable. So, I've thought about that scenario when I was writing out our will for our family, and
Mm,
um, we now have my third kid just turned 18, and sort of like if my wife and I were to pass, I thought, okay, well, the older siblings, if they want to, can raise their younger siblings, but I've just thought about that, like how challenging that would be to I mean, it's
mhm.
challenging at any level, but newly married in college, all the things you just said, and then it's not even, I don't know, maybe newborns are harder, but having 3 kids, all these different ages, not that much younger than you, really. I
Right.
mean, they're basically siblings, right?
Yeah,
And now
right.
trying to take on the parent role at the same time. What how did the Lord take you through that? What did that look like?
It was a grueling process for me and Michelle because when we talk about, often hear it in the faith community, die to self, die to my flesh,
Mm.
and take up your cross and follow Christ. But what does that look like? What's the lived experience and a practical nature of that? And we got to find out firsthand that we would consistently rely on ourselves, our own knowledge, our
Mm.
own resources, and it just would not help us. And it was excruciatingly hard to depend on ourselves. So we had to lean in into fasting and praying, to having
Mm.
truthful, honest conversation with one another. And we lean on our local church support. We had 2 great, I would call them like my big brother now, our local pastors there,
Mm.
Andrea and Adrian Hendricks, both. Well, Dr. Hendricks has been just a crucial, I would say, mentor and influence in our life. They not only helped us in college and navigate that as college students, but also navigate our faith journey and navigate how to be just active parents and playing their role confidently in their lives, in our
Mm.
younger kids' lives. So that having that support, I can't stress that enough. Just being able to have the community of support to be able to walk that walk, not alone.
Yeah. Wow. That's That's remarkable. That's a very unique story too. I think of
Oh yeah.
a number of things you shared. It's fascinating. So I always find that um, in our church there are times we'll have people will share testimonies about their life and how the Lord's been in their life, and I always find that there's something that somebody shares that is really helpful and encouraging to somebody else. You never know who it
Mm,
is. So I
yeah.
just believe that that's going to happen on this podcast, even with the things you've shared already.
Oh,
So,
wow.
so that's really cool. Now, let me just kind of flip over to the other side.
Mhm.
And what has your real estate journey looked like in your life? How did you discover it?
Yeah,
What's that?
this has been a really fun adventure for me. Initially, I started working in after playing football. I started working with Fellowship of Christian Athletes and just really pursuing faith in sport. But after that, I really started to have a deep yearning to get connected to the family component in the community.
Hmm.
And I got this opportunity to start working with apartment life. And for me, it was imposter syndrome all over from all over again. And then stepping into the multifamily space with very limited knowledge. I mean, only what I've seen on TV and what I've experienced in growing up, and I was just taken back. And it's been so, I think, so unique to learn all the different moving pieces and elements and just the robust nature of the multifamily industry. That's what's appealed to me. I love a challenge and I love to come at the table completely empty so that I can learn. And it's been unique to see how, not only in apartment life, how we can connect with apartment owners and to see their vision for making impact in the communities. But for me, I love to see how my family can get more connected and be able to leverage this as a wealth generator for our family.
Yeah, that's really cool. So you should probably take a little second here to just explain a little bit about what apartment life is for people, because I've loved it. I kind of ran into it, but didn't know it existed, and I feel like it fits really well. So for the people who don't know anything about apartment life, what's the organization that you're working with?
Absolutely. Well, it was founded by Stan Dobbs and it originated in Texas 24 years ago. So back in 2000, he had a vision for being able to partner with apartment owners to care for residents and connecting them in meaningful relationships. So the way we do that is we help establish a strong community that we believe would in turn help the bottom line for our apartment owners. We believe that if we have a thriving resident who enjoys and loves where they live, then they tell people, they build friends. And we really want to combat loneliness, this sense of disconnected, the depression, especially coming after what happened in 2020 with COVID.
Hmm.
We want our residents to have friends and neighbors, and we want them to love where they live. So being able to partner with the on-site team to reduce some of that stress that they, as they're operating, we think about the practical nature of from leasing to maintenance to just everything that goes into operations. Well, one thing that we can come alongside them in is that be that the new amenity, or it's just a luxury resident experience to be able to have residents really feel valued and appreciated. And so we've been able to see that have a tremendous impact on the bottom line with over, it's been estimated to upwards of $188,000 in value. And that's with all of our tenants that decide to renew their leases, all us with the staff, reducing staff turnover, and just with the increased resident retention, it's been a cool partnership just to see how we can help increase the bottom line by caring for residents.
Yeah, I love that. And if you guys go to my website and sort of like my vision, ROC Solid Investments, it's like very similar to what apartment life does. So that's part of what gravitated me towards it. And I love that because when I talk with other multifamily investors, everyone's looking for value add. Like, where can we add? What are things we can do? And a lot of times it's, certain amenity, a certain, adding a dog park or a playground or storage or, pickleball or whatever.
Mhm.
But I love this concept because it's not the amenity you're adding is relationships and like
Yeah.
value of life, which is, I don't know, it's a great thing. And I'm not a ton on Instagram, but I just happened to be there the other day and I saw a few apartment life ads popped up on Instagram of people, like
Nice.
different events that people had recorded and showed little snippets of it. So I just love it. And yeah, so if anybody wants to know more about that, you can certainly contact me or Alex Campbell at Apartment Life. It's a cool thing. So
Nice.
um so for you, I mean, you were working with Fellowship of Christian Athletes or FCA
Mhm.
yeah, out of college, and that's not really connected to apartment life. So how did you discover, like, how did you get into that and discover apartment life?
Yeah, so right around the time, I think it was 2021 in the spring, I had been praying right after my daughter joined the military and graduated high school. I said, I had this confession to the Lord. I would allow myself to be open for this next season and I wouldn't hold on to something that you wanted to move me from. So I'd already felt the tug on the spirit to journey into something different. I just didn't know what different was. And I was
Mm,
skeptical and nervous about it. But I stepped out on faith. And after I had my transition from what FCA, which was healthy and great, I just knew it was in time for a new chapter. And I was an empty nester now, so my wife and I happened to go to the gym one day on our casual workout sessions. And man, I get in there, I'm pumping iron with one of my close friends, Josh Jackaway. And he had just recently moved back from Chicago. He was pastoring here in Kansas City, went to Chicago for some years, and then he returned back to KC and he started working part time with Apartment Life. And he was just like, "Hey, Alex, so I'm realizing you're not with FCA. Have you heard about Apartment Life?" And I'm like, "No,
mm,
Josh, what is that?" And I said, I really didn't want to just jump into anything right after coming from FCA. I wanted to take some time. And he said, just give it a shot. And he connected. He said, I want to make a connection. And I was like, sure. He said, I want to meet you. I want to introduce you to a guy named P. Kelly. And I'm thinking, okay, great. He was like, yeah, he's a leader of Apartment Life. So I had no idea, his actual position at the time. But I'm thinking, okay, great. I'll talk to one of their leaders. And long story short, I had a great conversation with P. Kelly and just thought, man, this guy is really, and then found out he was the CEO. So I'm like, wait a minute. He had time out of his day to meet with
mm,
me and introduce me to Apartment Life. And he just did that for a conversation with Josh. And then he introduced me to several other leaders. I met Jackie Ratsliff from her, and I just continued to meet other leaders that I felt like, wow, I was more attracted to the leadership within
mm,
Apartment Life
mm.
before I could even fully understand the inner workings of the business model or just that
Yeah.
component. So that in itself is what drew me in, and then it was kind of the writing was on the wall there. I really had a desire in some way. I wanted to get involved with Apartment Life, and I didn't know how, but later down the line, I got the opportunity to come on as a part-time program director to really understand the inner workings of it from the ground up, and the rest is history.
Well, that's really cool. So, so this has been, I don't know, I feel like your journey into real estate is different than a lot of other people's I've talked to.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, my own story, I kind of stumbled into it as well. I got hired as a property manager before I even knew what that meant. I didn't know what it meant to be a
Yeah.
property manager, but my friend gave me a chance and hired me on, and so that was like my introduction into real estate. But most people, it's kind of a different journey than what you've experienced. And what are some of the things that since you have, I would say, it's kind of stumbled into real estate, what are some of the
Mhm.
things that that you've liked about it, that's caught your attention, and that make you excited about being in the real estate space?
Yeah, I'll say one of the great experiences was actually going to the apartment association, becoming a member, and getting involved. That's something that really just piqued my interest, and it's also what continues to draw me to go deeper within the industry. I know for me, I had no understanding of how the operation side or the industry side. I'm becoming more aware and growing in my knowledge from the supplier side. So being able to get involved with our local association here in Kansas City has been just a great influence on my real estate journey. From there, I got to connect with other leaders when I attended NAA Apartmentalize, and that was just a huge event. I think
Mm,
that was kind of the foundation where I knew I really wanted to grow in my knowledge and connections and network. And then I think from there, being able to just have great one-on-one conversations with not only some of the key industry leaders from the property management side, but continue to build relationships with the owners. That's been so life-giving. Connecting with you, connecting with other owners across the nation, that's one of the things that's really shaped some of the conversations with my wife on what does the next 5 years look like for us. I mean, learning
mm.
what I'm leveraging from Apartment Life to be able to apply that to our own personal goals has been something that's been some fun conversations and date nights at home, if I could say.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. That nothing will stir that up more than thinking about bigger things than you've ever thought of before. So
Oh yeah.
that's always fun. So tell me, and I feel like this is actually your whole job is this question. So
Mhm.
how have you seen Jesus and real estate intersect in your life and in the things you're doing?
Well, working within apartment life, from the very time that we reach out and connect, our whole desire is to be able to love and care for our neighbors. And
Mm,
so in that is being able to have an open arm to whoever we come into contact with and being able to share that love of Christ, whether that's somebody who's a believer or a non-believer. So that being the initial conversation starter, that for me is one of those like kind of I fall in love with the process. And
mm,
it's being able to be people oriented and be able to focus on building healthy relationships. And once we see those connections happen, when we're able to care for our industry partners, whether that be a leasing or a marketing director, oftentimes our community managers and regional managers, sometimes they're just not wired to have a faith-driven conversation,
mm,
but it's how we interact with them, and we get to have that intangible element show up when it's whether it's an email being sent, text message, or a video face-to-face call, and that interaction really we get to demonstrate just this kingdom lifestyle. So
mm,
oftentimes I hear, hey, you know what? That's just something different about you, or different something different about a member of your team. And
mm,
I love that being, that key identifier, because then we can leverage that. Well, one of the ways that we truly want to care for people is to care for them in a Christly or godly way, in a manner. And then prayerfully that leads to a deeper conversation. And we've seen it happen just like wildfire. It's and I mean, I could use a better term because that can be in other places that's hard. Well, I would just say it's been a very healthy, contagious
mm,
thing that we've seen to shape in these apartment communities where 95% of our residents are unchurched. And so
mm,
if you see these huge opportunities, whether that be in Seattle or in Chicago or in Colorado, we're seeing our coordinators connect with our residents at events, whether it's meeting or walking to the mailbox, taking out trash, or when they have a life event, you have a new birth in the family or death in the family, we're able to
mm,
be there and care, not only for residents, but the staff as well. And that's
mm.
just being the hands and feet of Jesus. And that's the one thing that I just find valuable from partnering on the faith side of what we get to do in apartment life.
Yeah, that's beautiful. On my for my ministry job with Greenhouse, we often talk about bringing the gospel to places where it's not,
Mhm.
or it's hard to get to. And a lot of times you think like globally to the unreached peoples around the world, which is also something on my heart. But recognizing there's actually kind of big pockets of unreached in our own country, and
Absolutely.
an apartment building is a microcosm of that. That
Mhm.
there's a large percentage of unchurched
Oh, and
there.
I love this on that to that point, what you just shared. Actually, when I was completing my theology degree, one of the things I wrote about in my paper is just this migration of
Mm,
what does the new age market, or what we call downtown area, or those centers, city centers look like.
yeah.
And we're saying that that's becoming more reflective of the world, where if you look at a
Yes.
downtown Kansas City, it's becoming a diverse population. And my
Mm,
wife's
mm,
high school, where she was teaching at, there were 55 spoken languages at the high school. So there's becoming a demand for us to be creative and diverse in our resources, and the way that we're equipping, the way that we're connecting and communicating. And I love that, because when we talk about going out and doing missionary work, a lot of times being Western and being an American, my first mindset is to think overseas and not to
right.
think my neighbor or the backyard or down the street. And I
Hmm.
love that being a starting place, because we talk about the local church getting engaged is what we truly love to see in apartment life. How can we engage the local church to really multiply our impact? And it's through connecting all those residents with local churches. And that's just a core piece of what we love to see happen in apartment life. So hey, I agree with you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. So not, I mean, obviously loving your neighbor, but also reaching the nations
Mhm.
is in the apartment buildings. Not only apartment buildings, but that's typically where like first generation immigrants are going to start out in apartment buildings before they
Absolutely.
can get their own home, or So it's just a heavier percentage, if you will, of that, and to think that you can reach the nations by going across the street or sometimes across the hallway, right? So
Without question.
Hi, Owen Cooper here with Rock Solid Investments. Sorry to interrupt this amazing conversation that's going on, but I did want to mention that if you are interested in investing with my company,
or even just curious about it, please go to my website, rocksolidinvestments.com, ROC solidinvestments.com. You can sign up for newsletters. You can book a time to talk with me, and we can talk more about what that investing journey would look like for you. So glad you're part of this podcast. And now let's get back to the conversation. So, what sort of challenges have you had to overcome in real estate and apartment life for you personally?
Yeah, well, one shocker that I've had to learn, I would say the hard way, is different than being on a football field and seeing the challenge in front of me, and I can do something or change my position, or just work in the weight room to get and overcome it. But one thing that I've learned that's humbling in the apartment industry is especially sales. With the industry, and you just think through the financial volatility and the back and forth with, the Fed having to raise, and then now doing interest cuts. Um, I've seen the impact on some of our partners, and how that impacts our how portfolios are put together,
Mhm.
syndicated projects, and just financially to see how are we caring for the owners and the residents that are impacted by this. And those sales are hard because you have a lot of moving things changing hands, and with that there are a lot of people that are entangled into that process as well. So that's one thing that I've really learned, but then also how quickly the rate or the pace that which our staff in the apartment industry will quickly turn over and shift to new roles and new communities,
Mm.
especially when you have new construction, new builds. Normally, I would think, okay, if I'm working with someone who's a manager, let's just say at Apple, and then I come back in a year or two, I'm expecting that either they're there or they've been promoted. Well, in the apartment industry, I'll work with a community manager or regional that might be over one portfolio, and then 6 months later they can be over an entirely different portfolio where I'm now building a new relationship for a community. So I'm like, whoa, that that's definitely a learning curve for me.
Yeah, high level of turnover for sure.
Mhm.
How has your faith helped you overcome those challenges?
Number one, being rooted. We talk about
Mm.
it all the time, being rooted and firmly planted. And we talk about it even as is mentioned in Jeremiah, or if we're talking back in Hebrews. We like to really rest in the fact that our constant is knowing that we're rooted in Christ in everything that we do, and that's in the heart of our relationships. So we always say, and I love this saying, it is from our executive team, and they talk about apartment life might not be the last place you work, but they want it to be the best place you work. And we love
Mm.
for that to overflow into our relationships. So while we're working with the client or we have a coordinator in the community, it's not necessarily whether we want to keep them. We love to have that relationship for years and years to come. But if we could have the opportunity to plant a seed, whether
Mm.
that's in the heart of an owner, the heart of an investor, the heart of our residents that we come into contact with, or our on-site team, that's what's most important. And then to be able to allow the Holy Spirit to water those seeds, and we can come alongside to support that with just continuous volunteer support and things like that. Those are the ways that we get to practically live that out and see how our faith intertwines with the support of our mission.
Yeah, very cool. I feel like you're gonna have a lot of these, but if you think about a God story, a moment where, because you've given some general examples, but some like specific moments where you've seen God show up,
Yeah.
because of the things that you're involved with.
And I didn't hear the last point.
Oh yeah. So the things, some of the things you're involved in, like just if you have a couple of specific examples of where you've seen God show up because of what you're doing.
Oh, sure. Yeah, we had one, and I won't name the specific community, but this took place in Omaha. We had a tragic and untimely death of a
Mm.
very young child.
Mm.
And in that, there were people that were really hurt. The parents were really hurt, and our coordinators living in that community really wanted to care. And man, it's just making me have kind of goosebumps thinking about it.
Mm.
Um, but not only were they able to, um, we had the husband and wife serve that family who lost their child in
Mm,
a way where they oversaw and conducted the services for the funeral services, the wake services, and put together a relief or a fund for the family with the local church support. But then also were able to minister to that family. And for us, that was just a huge invitation to partner with them at a very vulnerable time in their life,
mhm,
and to let our coordinators in on that moment, and to be able to share the love of Christ and the hope of Christ to a family that's going through a very tragic situation. So that was just a huge, blessing for the kingdom of God in that. And then, I mean, flip side of that, we have, just a beautiful story where, I mean, in another community, neighboring community, we have a one of our coordinators who was working to build relationships with one of the ladies that was a resident at that community. And just after several conversations and just doing life, right? Not really
mhm,
pushing, not forcing any conversations, but it's just showing up and being present, and in that
yeah,
exemplifying Christly lifestyle or Christly living. And that led to deeper conversations on the faith journey. And this young lady decided that, she wanted to go into it deeper on herself and accepted Christ into her heart. And
mm.
then this coordinator actually got to take her to church and lead her baptism
Oh,
in
wow.
front of the congregation. And
Wow.
so we get to hear and see these stories of impact, and it just blows your mind because you go through the ups and downs of the day to day, and there are some hard things that happen. I mean, you have like, violence still happen in communities and things like that. But our coordinators, we consider them to be missionaries living on mission, and they're in these communities to build relationships. And we embrace the hard. I remember listening and reading a book by Mark Batterson, and it was All In. And one of it was just embracing a hard. And he has a specific chapter in there where he says, pack your coffin. And so when you
Mm,
have that conversation with all of our local missionaries here in apartment communities, then they understand like, hey, I'm here willing to lay my life down for my neighbor, and they live that out daily. So those are a couple instances where I've seen our coordinators step up and show up big. And the last one I'll share is that we've had another a tragic accident happen in one of our communities in the Northwest in Seattle, where there was a suicide in the
mm,
community, which really in the tragic way it happened, it rocked the community. And we had not only our staff, but the coordinators step up in a big way to be able to care for those who are impacted. The community manager who actually witnessed it in person,
mm,
to be able to care for that manager in that way. In that time, just being able to console and share the hope of Christ in a
mm,
way that was not forceful, but just again, practically through the way that we live alongside our neighbors. And those are just a few ways that I've seen apartment life be able to be a pivotal way, a pivotal representation of the kingdom in these communities.
mm. Oh, that's really beautiful. I think every one of those stories represents something, but there was the first one in particular, uh, or maybe I could say it about all of them. I think the reality is that um, there's there's being present and you're doing groundwork in advance to be able to earn the trust to have one of those moments, whether it's
Hmm.
orchestrating a funeral service or a baptism, or navigating through a suicide. Like all those, you're not just gonna have some random stranger trust you through that. So that tells
Hmm.
me, like it's just being there, being present, and and then God kind of uses those moments for even greater things.
Oh,
That's really
absolutely.
cool. So I know, like for you, as you've kind of jumped into apartment life and eyes have been open into real estate and different investing strategies, certainly in the multi-family space, there are some things that have caught your attention and have made you excited about um, being a real estate investor. But for people maybe who are considering investing but
Mhm.
haven't started yet, or just kind of thinking about different options, what would you say to a person like that?
Ooh, number one, I would say this is where being a self-directed learner really
Mm,
enables you and equips you to be successful in this journey, because for one, just having hope, believing that you will be able to attain success in the space. Because like I
Mm.
said earlier, imposter syndrome can set in, and you can think, man, this just seems very vast, robust, and just I don't want people to be afraid of embarking upon this beautiful challenge. So I think it's a wonderful opportunity with multifamily. The number two thing outside of just having that self faith and hope in there is to begin to self educate. Like get the
Yeah.
books, get
Yeah.
get all the type of materials and resources you can, because that's you doing your own due diligence on what type of foundation you can have to be successful. Number three, I would say, then you have a mentor. Get a
Mm.
mentor in the space, which is what I've done in my relationships with apartment life. Is really allow me to benefit from having close relationships with some of our seasoned property and asset development owners, and just a array of people across this, the industry space. And then not be afraid to put your knowledge to work. So in that,
Mm.
I've actually tried to activate by showing up to some of the conferences, being in attendance, and then engaging in some of these local groups and Facebook groups or social media groups, where it become common knowledge to interact in what let's just say of a smaller. I'm looking at some 12 and 24 doors units, in terms of just getting a small understanding of what it looks like, and then comparing that to some of my mentors' conversations on larger deals that can range in the thousands of units.
Mm.
So with that, I'll start to establish a baseline, and that'll help prepare me for once I position myself. And actually like to invest in the stock market, so I'm actually using the capital that I get from my investments, and I'm putting that to a side so they can earn interest. And then from that, as that's earning and growing, and I could even say position a portion of my income into this portfolio, so that once I am flush in cash, I'll be able to take advantage of opportunities and look at either creative financing or opportunities where I can start to put that money to use and partake in some of the opportunities in multifamily.
Yeah, well, that's great. You just laid out a simple framework for someone to go from nothing to success, and I love it. I think what you shared is probably beyond even real estate investing, just life in general.
Oh,
The sense of being a self learner and finding a mentor and taking action and getting out and actually putting it to work. And then I was thinking about this, what you said, there's this connection uh, from what we were just sharing, these stories you're sharing about opportunities to be Christ in these apartment places. And the connection I heard was you have to be there. Yes, you have to show up and you have to be
yeah,
in the space. So if you want to be in multifamily, like be around those people who are doing multifamily. And if you want to make a difference for Christ, be around those people who don't know him and
yes.
and then see what God does, and he'll do something there. So yeah, that's really good.
Oh, and I would say half of the battle or half of the challenge in growing relationships is just being consistent with showing up. And
Yes.
I love that. As my coach would always say, when we get to practice, he was like, "Hey guys, I need y'all to show up today." And so in there is being fully present when I'm there. So I heard this term, said around the National Football League: "Be at where your feet is at." So I love to
Mhm.
be present with that.
Yeah, that's really good. That's good. So what are some of the things that are attractive to you about investing in real estate? What are the things that stand out for you?
Number one, the opportunity to create generational wealth. I
Hmm.
think there's so much value in when you just understand the basics of multifamily, and when you think about compounding interest or multiplication. I think there is a huge opportunity within multifamily. So investing, number one for me, is to be able to create generational wealth. But then I think the dual benefit from it for me is just the opportunity for kingdom impact. And so
Hmm.
this word just supersedes, wealth creation, because I always pray in my personal, the Lord would bless me with opportunities so that I can be people giving. Like I want to be a chief giver and be able to give so much that I'm looking for opportunities to give beyond what I'm receiving. And
Hmm.
then in that, is how can I plant seeds in the hearts of everybody I come into contact with? Think about it like you said earlier. You said here, I mean, look at the numbers of the just the sheer amount of people that live in an apartment community. And if I
Mhm.
were to try to go door to door to reach everyone, that's more addition. But if I truly wanted to multiply my impact and have, be able to have and a very expedited way to reach people, that's in apartment communities. And
Yeah.
so if I have connections with whether that be other nonprofit organizations that can help with resources or that can connect people with opportunities to volunteer and serve. I mean, you think about it, right there in the center of an apartment community is an opportunity to connect people, to be able to care for people. And then in that way, I think that's a blessing for me. So yeah, those two would be just the immediate ones that stand out to me as in
Yeah.
terms of what interests me.
Well, that's a great 2 to begin with. Yeah, you probably don't need any more than that. Multi-generational and kingdom impact. I love
Hmm.
it. I heard, I can't tell you where this study came from, so I can't verify it, but that actually the apartment or renters versus homeowners, like right now it's about like roughly 2/3 homeowners, 1/3 renters.
Hmm.
But in the next like 10 to 15 years, that's actually going to switch. Have you seen those statistics too, where
I
it's going to
have.
be like 2/3 of renters and
Yeah.
1/3 homeowners?
And
Um,
that's staggering to think.
yeah. So I was thinking about that when you're talking about like multiplying and the impact and the reality of actually that's going to be the soon in the next decade and a half the
Mhm.
the majority of our culture is going to be in these renting situations. So we should have a strategy for that, right?
Oh,
It's
yeah.
different than than kind of spread out homeowner strategy. So
That's actually what we think about in apartment life. But just me personally, I know my wife and I have conversations on what does the world look like 2030, 2040, 2050 as we
mhm,
become more like innovatively wired and we living through this whole technological era right now. Everybody's looking for, I mean, I would say in apartment communities, you have at a higher rate more people looking to retire and be in a community where it's
mhm,
all inclusive. We have these
yep,
things taken care of, and the more we continue to prepare our structure and I'll say our infrastructure and apartment life to care for that. But even personally for my wife and I think that helps us because we've even considered now that we're empty nesters. Hey, can we downsize? Do we need this home? Could we live in an apartment
mm,
community? So I've been able
mhm,
to personally engage in that conversation.
yeah, yeah, that's great. So, since you've come into real estate investing through apartment life, what sort of differences have you seen that make in your life? How has that changed the way that you're going about your living?
Yeah, I would say it's helping me with just the biases that I wasn't aware of.
Hmm.
I immediately I had all these assumptions when I came into apartment life about what the essence of an apartment community was. And quickly, I
Hmm.
mean, we're able to deconstruct what I thought a healthy community was, even understanding the difference between what's considered an A or B or C prop community, learning the differences for tax credit communities or affordable housing, senior and student, and understanding the different dynamic and challenges that each of those communities face, and that's from a supplier and from an industry side and then the owner side. So
Mhm.
that just wealth of diversification and knowledge and understanding has really helped to reshape my thought, and I would say just um, my approach when it comes to the apartment industry. But then I think personally now, I had an idea of, hey, I just wanted to do single family homes. But then once I saw the multiples and of returns that potentially come from the multifamily industry, I just had like, whoa, I need to rethink this thing. And then I think when you pair all that together, it's just so much more to learn from it and how laws and policies are in place and how that entire dynamic impacts, let's just say, so you have short-term rentals with Airbnb and different organizations popping up around the country on with that model. Like, how do all of those interconnect? And so it's
Yeah.
been a vast learning curve for me in that. But I think I'll just continue. I'm a lifelong learner, so I'm continue to press into it and just continue to make the best, most informed decisions with everything that I'm learning.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really good. Yeah, I would say like the typical process that people do is they start with some single families and then move into multifamily,
Hmm.
and that has it's definitely been that's maybe the one thing I've done that's typical. I've kind of gone down that road and had a number of single families, and I will tell you, just the economy of scale it makes a big difference
Yeah.
when you're thinking about all the different roofs, all the different water heaters and furnaces and things that can go wrong, as opposed to putting them all under one space together. And um, so there's great value, but it's a different world, and so you have to kind of
Yeah.
learn that world and get to know it.
You know what, on the one thing that I'll definitely have to exercise discipline on is when it really comes down to opportunity cost and FOMO, just the fear of missing out. Knowing and
Yeah.
having the knowledge about the compounded multiples that come from multifamily, but being disciplined enough to start with
Mhm.
single family or making that decision to scale my way up into growth. That's where personally, between my wife and I, that we want to remain humbled and disciplined in that so that we can have a strong foundation.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's for me, I think I talk to a lot of people in this space. There's a hunger and a drive that really pushes people forward,
Mhm.
which is really good. But I think sometimes there's a desire, you kind of want to skip steps and just like jump right ahead,
Yeah.
and that usually doesn't go well. So
No, I don't want to be over leveraged.
yeah, right, exactly. So yeah, this has been really good. I've loved this conversation. You've mentioned about being a recent empty nester. You're probably the youngest empty nester that I've ever come run across. So that's uh, pretty
Yeah.
amazing. But so what's something that's been exciting or interesting in your life recently, or do you think about this new empty nesting, things you're looking forward to ahead, kind of just anything in your life?
Yeah, I was recently sharing, we had a luncheon in Indianapolis, and I don't know why, just Holy Spirit tugged it on my heart to share this in front of this large group of strangers that I don't know. But I shared with them that intimately I was nervous about this next chapter of life, being an empty
Mm,
nester, with my youngest turning 22. So my two daughters, or my youngest is 22, the oldest daughter is 24, my oldest son is 27, and he has wait, she just turned 5 and a 2-year old. And so when you think about that
mm,
dynamic, it was just really stepping back and breathing. And then
mm.
I didn't want to overburden my wife, because now, for the first time since 2009, I would say, we're having 2 years of being just us and
Yeah.
trying to figure that space out. So I was like, oh, I'm nervous in that. But I would say just embracing this opportunity that I'm the space that I'm in now, to truly start to trust in the Lord, but not to be there's a verse that really, I think it's in Matthew chapter, I don't know if that's chapter 20. I think it is, where it's talking about the servant who was given the talents, the
Mm,
three servants. And I know one was given 1 talent, one was given 2 talents, and one was given 5. And what I don't want to do is enter into this next chapter of life and I be the one who was given 1 talent and I hid it in the ground for
mm,
fear of losing it. That's
mhm.
where I want to exercise my faith like a muscle and utilize it, trust in the Lord that I'm making informed, spiritually wise decisions so that I can grow that. And then the Father essentially can say, I've seen that you've doubled what I've given you. Am I utilizing my natural gifts, my talents, my resources and abilities for the kingdom? And then allowing the Lord to be able to see that and then add the increase and multiply that himself. So that's where I'm at spiritually in this journey. And I know that starts with me being transparent and vulnerable in the leadership styles that Christ modeled,
Mm,
and him having a heart posture where he came to serve and not be served. So I believe modeling those characteristics and traits just at a very authentic level, being who I am, but being coachable, then I'll position myself where I'm content in what I'm doing day to day.
yeah. Well, that's beautiful. That's great. Thank you so much for sharing that and for being vulnerable here as well. And I know that the Lord will use that. He
No,
he
I
uh,
appreciate
exalts the humble. So trust that will happen for you as well. Well, Alex, this has been great. Thank you so much for this time, this conversation. I know that many people will be blessed by hearing this when it comes out. And I just appreciate the time and getting to know you. And I look forward to the day we'll get to meet in person.
Oh, I'm looking forward to that, Owen. And I appreciate you creating an opportunity for me to be able to share here on your podcast.
Thanks for joining us with another episode of Faith-Filled Investing.